It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 4 of season 3, I got to talk to you, the people, about a few quick things. First off, if you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe, and also hit that arrow button right below this video. That is a share button. You can share us to Snapchat, Facebook, and Instagram. So make sure to do so if you know some other Detroit Pistons fans. Also, if you haven't checked out our merch yet, make sure to click the link in our YouTube bio or in the description below. That link will shoot you to Grind Clothing Co.'s website. They are our official merch sponsor. And sorry, we've been away for a couple weeks, just kind of adulting, doing certain things. So just bear with us as we're going through this new stage in life, and we'll keep trying to get get out as many videos as we can. And also, something going on with my visual today. I'm gonna have to go buy a new camera or something at Target or something. I don't know. I look foggy on my end. We'll see what it comes out in the video. But so just bear with us with some of these things. Let's get into episode number 4 of season 3. And something that's kind of interesting going on with the Detroit Pistons right now is this Emirates Cup tournament that they're kind of working through. And at the time of the recording, the Pistons are 3-0, and they are about to play the Milwaukee Bucks to hopefully advance in the tournament. If they lose, they'll have to play one more game to try to solidify their trip to Vegas. Right now, Atlanta has Atlanta has clinched the East Group C. Houston has clinched West Group A. Golden State has clinched the other West group, which is C. And so basically, if we beat the Milwaukee Bucks, they will go on to more than likely play the Boston Celtics or one of those teams to try to get their shot at making it in another group. And the Pistons win, they'll be going to Vegas. And if you've been watching some of the Cup games, the Pistons have been making a big deal about getting this trip to Las Vegas and trying to get their shot at winning the whole thing. Ryan, what would this mean for this Pistons team that has been fighting in every game, trying to win these games? What would it mean to kind of go to the nice weather Las Vegas, have a couple days away from Detroit as it's starting to get pretty cold, and just have this momentous occasion in Las Vegas?
Yeah, you think about the path, well, not just path, but what they've accomplished in such a short period of time. I mean, that sounds like I'm praising them, which I kind of am. But if you look back at last year was terrible, like the worst it could possibly be. And this year so far, we're playing at a much higher level. Like this team right now could easily beat last year's team. That's the difference. You added in the vets of Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris. Like those three in particular have been big for us. I would say probably the biggest out of the three being Malik Beasley by far, which you would going into the season, you would have been like, oh, it's Tobias. But it's actually turned out to be Malik Beasley, which I'm not surprised because we needed 3-point shooting, and he's our 3-point shooter. But this would be big for them, just in the sense of what can you do to level up or step up your game to the next level. And they've cleared out a couple checkpoints here and there. You could go as far as to say, like, okay, can we make the jump to winning more games this month than what we did last year and this month? Or can we limit our turnovers, limit our fouls, but still be aggressive on defense, be aggressive on offense? Like, here's little things. Here's a checklist, just checking off boxes, getting to that point. And the point we're at right now, like 3-0 in the NBA Cup. Granted, it's the NBA Cup. I'm not against it. I'm not opposed to it. It's just like, yeah, it doesn't really mean anything still. It's not like an NBA championship because we all know that matters the most. But it is a good stepping stone for this young team because a lot of these teams, they're in it to not only hang up a potential banner per se, like the Lakers did, which I thought was silly, but like you get recognition around the league. Okay, you got to kind of actually watch out for this team. Like they're actually solid. So it's all about getting recognition right now. The Pistons before this season, everybody's like, "Yep, they're crap. They're not gonna win anything. We don't have to game plan for them every single night because they're not gonna be effective against us." But now we're to the point where you have to game plan for Malik Beasley, you have to game plan for Tobias Harris, you have to game plan for Tim Hardaway Jr., Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, etc. You have to pretty much game plan for the entire team. And yes, we're not playing like out of this world right now, but we are playing significantly better than we were last year. And this NBA Cup, the fact we're 3-0 right now, that's great. Potentially 4-0 after a win tonight, which would be huge. Obviously, we'd advance into the NBA Cup, even more so than what we're at right now. We would get out of the just pool played. We'd be in bracket mode. But I think it's big for us because it just hits another milestone onto where this team could go. And JB Bickerstaff has had a huge influence on this team so far to go from last year with Monty Williams, where Monty did not try clearly at all to get this team better, to where we are now. There's been such a big improvement where I think if we keep building onto this and just stacking these wins and progress in this NBA Cup, even though you could say, like, yes, it doesn't mean anything, it means a lot to this young Pistons team because they're finally coming together as a group, finally starting to get their stride and play to the level that they should be playing at.
Yeah, for sure. And their three wins are nothing to dismiss because they beat whomped a Pacers team by 23 points. A season ago went 4-0 on us in the season series. Miami Heat, they won by 3 points. That was a team that historically just hammers the Detroit Pistons. They're 1-1 so far on the season. And then they beat the Toronto Raptors that are kind of having a slow start in the Eastern Conference so far this season. So it's nice to see the Pistons kind of have this a big statement win against a Raptors team that's kind of struggling, but it's a big deal when a team like the Pistons can beat successfully and easily some of these losing teams. And the Pistons right now looking at a 9-12 record, trying to fight for a 500 record. For as far as this Pistons versus Bucks game, the Pistons, it looks like it may be winnable with Chris Middleton still out. Probable players are Giannis Antetokounmpo, Marjan Beauchamp, and Taurean Prince, a good rotation player for this Milwaukee Bucks team. So it'll be interesting to see what the results are. When by the time this video comes out, we will know what the results are. Either the Pistons go right to Vegas, or they're going to have to fight for a spot to get to Vegas. Another thing that's interesting about this play-in tournament is when we do possibly go to Vegas, we're going to be competing against these tough teams that you kind of want to have your name next to as far as NBA teams. Like the New York Knicks with a win are heading to Vegas. The Orlando Magic with a win are going to Vegas. They're currently third in the Eastern Conference right now, the Orlando Magic. They are having, and so in the future, that's the kind of team names that you want to put yourself up against and say you can compete with these teams. I can beat these teams. And that's going to be a big thing for the Detroit Pistons as far as if they make it farther in this tournament. They're saying, hey, we compete with you guys too. We're not just a team that is 4 wins when you play against us in the Eastern Conference. Nope, we can compete. One big thing too, as far as what we've seen so far in the Emirates tournament, is Ron Holland and his play versus specifically the Toronto Raptors in the first Emirates Cup game. What we saw from him is just great dominant defense against an RJ Barrett, who against Ron Holland shot 6 for 17. And then Grady Dick shot 4 of 15. And JB Bickerstaff gave Holland a vote of confidence before the game. And then even though he kind of shot rough, his defense really stood a testament. And Ryan, it's really good when you see a guy like JB Bickerstaff giving his flowers to rookie Ron Holland, because that type of leadership as of giving a vote of confidence to players, we haven't seen last season with Monty Williams. It's great to kind of see this culture movement with JB.
Yeah, Ron Holland has been spectacular so far. Obviously, the 3-point shot isn't falling at least at high of a rate as we would like it to be. But he's a big energy guy, and JB's recognized that. JB last year had not JB, Monty last year rather had a very hard time throwing together lineups, which is because he was not trying. Because I still believe he's a good coach. He just did not care about the Pistons and where he was with that team. But like you look back at the rotations he'd throw out there, and you're kind of going like, ooh, how does this like lineup shape together? Like I
Right.
don't get or understand why player A is out there with player F because like that just doesn't add up.
Agree.
Not saying that player F is bad. That's an example, but you look at what JB has done with this team this year. Is I mean, you go back to the introductory press conference that he had. He said, "I am going to make sure that every single player is utilized the right way. I've been thinking about where each player could be at, what their potential is with this team, what their potential is overall, who's the like just all the details he was looking at. And he told us flat out, like, hey, I've been before I even took the job, I was in the getting work done, trying to figure out all the little things to make sure this team is successful for the long haul. And that really stuck to me and he's proving it game in and game out. Yes, maybe some of the results are in a loss, and yeah, that hurts. But this year compared to last year is significantly better because we're plus like what we've already had more wins right now than we've had last year to this point. So like just from that standpoint alone, but JB Bickerstaff, he's bringing energy. He's a very calm presence when he's out there on the sideline sometimes, but he can really get into it. But outside of that, like you have Luke Walton and the rest of his staff coaching and actually like giving good advice to the players where Monty and his staff didn't really do that. Now, again, Jared Jack was part of last year's staff, is a part of this year's staff, but we know Jared Jack. Jared Jack is a big energy guy. He's going to uplift the players, motivate them, critique them, do all the little things with them. But like the coaching staff that JB has assembled, along with his coaching persona, and then just what he's instilled with the team. And just like you look in the facilities, last year there was like it was blank walls, banners, and that's it. But now you see the banners, of course, still being there, but you have be impactful, like a bunch of motivational messages up all over the facilities. And I'm like, that's new. That's something that wasn't there last year. Like we would know. But what JB has done with his belief in his players is just amazing because you mentioned Ron Holland, but another name you could mention is Wendell Moore. Nobody thought when we were making that trade to acquire that second round pick and then Wendell Moore, like nobody thought that like Wendell Moore was going to do anything for us, but he's actually done a lot for us. He's actually a solid role player on this young Pistons team. And you think as to what, granted, that's Trajan Langdon all over it. But you think of, okay, Trajan saw all this with Wendell Moore, but JB is establishing Wendell Moore to be a good, solid, productive role player on this team. And so he's just the bottom line is like JB is killing it right now. And because of his belief in his players, the players are playing up to another level.
One more thought I have about JB is just like a quick little sidebar. I was watching one of the broadcasts live. I think it was probably one of the play-in tournament games. And Johnny Kane kind of took a moment to talk about JB and what he did for the Detroit Pistons for Thanksgiving Day. I believe maybe this Thanksgiving Day after, maybe that Friday. JB took some time at a away hotel. They were on an away stint. He went into the hotel cafeteria and he asked to have access to the kitchen and he made Thanksgiving dinner for the Detroit Pistons. That is just such an awesome culture thing that we haven't seen from a Detroit Pistons coach in years. For JB to take the time, cook the turkey, make the gravy, do all these little things, and to do it all for his team, the Detroit Pistons. Just think about the moments they shared in that cafeteria and just building these relationships and JB installing these thoughts and just great tactics in this Detroit Pistons team. I just loved that as a little side note. Also, when talking about the Pistons, like you kind of mentioned earlier, they're at 9 wins right now. They didn't reach 9 wins last season until February, people. So I know that like, okay, people are kind of like, okay, where are my thoughts on this Detroit Pistons team? Should I, be confident in them and think that they're going to be a seventh, eighth seed? What are they going to be in the Eastern Conference, or are they the same old Pistons, kind of like what the Detroit Lions were going through when they were making that, big, burst into winning? And I think that this Pistons team is something that we can have confidence in, and not be afraid that to say that we are Detroit Pistons fans. Me and Ryan are in the UP. There are so many Milwaukee Bucks fans in the UP because people here in the UP are only 4 hours away from Milwaukee. And so all of them claim the Bucks. And no, we have to stand firm and have confidence in our great Detroit Pistons team, because this is a team we can have confidence in and have fun watching. They're a lot of fun to watch, especially when Cade's playing. Something I want to talk about that kind of became a big talking point during the play-in matchup against the Indiana Pacers. It was the second or third game where we saw Asar Thompson come back and start playing in a big way. And JB Bickerstaff has a few comments on when he brought back Asar Thompson, and I just kind of want to read some through part of this article so we can kind of get a deeper look at how JB Bickerstaff explains how he wants to bring Asar Thompson back in a big way. So Thompson was limited to 2 minutes and 23 seconds of playing time in the first quarter before playing a nearly 5-minute stint in the second quarter against the Pacers. He was visibly winded as he knocked down a pair of free throws shortly before halftime, extending the lead back to 15. Quote, "We're going to be extremely cautious," Bickerstaff said pregame. Quote, "There's no reason for us to push it or rush it. Even when he started, you saw that his first stint was a very short stint. What we don't want him trying to save it, and now he's not getting what he needs." So they're trying to be very cautious in a way, but smart, that you get enough times to get a couple shots up so you can kind of try to find that groove when he is fully healthy. I mean, think about working with blood clots, Ryan, and how hard it is to kind of stay in the gym and run up and down the court, have that same athleticism he has. I mean, this is a big deal, not for the Pistons, Asar coming back, but just for his life, Ryan. It must be a great relief for Asar Thompson, and we're also seeing him play pretty well.
Yeah. Shout out Kenny for surviving blood clots. That was a yeah. But no, Asar Thompson, what he's been able to do in just 4 games is pretty darn special. You think of blood clots and how serious it is. It's not an injury; it's actually a health concern. And you think of what he's done in just 4 games. Obviously, he's getting limited playing time. But in 4 games, he's averaging around 6 points a game, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, like 35% from the field, which is significantly better shooting wise than last year. But like the production he's had in just 4 games, and he's in a limited role, like that's pretty darn good. And like think about it. If he was completely like 100%, no issues, no stamina issues at all, had 100% in energy and all that jazz. Like the stats he's averaging in 4 games with a completely no health concern, Asar Thompson, who's extremely in shape. Like this would be pretty darn good to see that increase in every statistical category. But like again, like last year, what was it? Like 17% from three out of him last year? That's not good. He hasn't really shot any threes this year, but still 35% for him from the field. Obviously, he's not forcing anything. He's still being a smart player. Like I remember a sequence where it was one of our previous games there. He didn't shoot it himself, but there was a shot. It was a miss. He grabbed the board, kicked it back out to the corner. That miss. The ball got tipped out from Stu. He grabs it, kicks it to the corner. Boom, there's a shot. And I'm like, wow, Asar Thompson. I mean, granted, he could have taken that at any point in time and just either slashed and went to the rim, or he could have taken that three himself. But he looked for the open man consistently. And then, like you said, like he's bulked up. He is huge now. He's not some small, thin, like
beast
dinky
mode
player. He is massive. which if you add that onto anytime you bulk up, you increase the years you're going to play in the league pretty much. The longevity does increase. So like look at Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was more thin than he was now, obviously. And you add muscle, you increase your longevity. Same with Wembanyama. Wembanyama last year, really thin. This year, he's huge. So like you have to gain some muscle mass to really have your foot in the door to get going. But what I've seen out of Asar Thompson in 4 games, you multiply that with an extremely healthy, bulked up Asar Thompson. He's going to have a big season for us this year. I just feel it like 35% already, 6 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. Like he's killing it right now in 4 games played and in a limited role. So hopefully, once he gets the feet under him a little bit more and more less fatigued, has more stamina, I am excited. Not just excited. I am ecstatic for what Asar Thompson can bring us this upcoming season.
I want to talk about two quick tweets I saw from the Detroit Pistons community, just because I want to kind of give some insight about what other commentators are kind of thinking as far as the Pistons' success right now. The first quote comes from Pistons Jack, who's making a big splash in the Detroit Pistons community right now, one of the newer influencers. Pistons Jack says, following the Indiana Pacers matchup, the most mature game I've seen from these Pistons. Weathered multiple runs on the road in a tough venue. Proud of them. Keep pushing. And that's why I do think like it's impressive to beat the Pacers the way they did, just because of how electric that venue is, and they do go on some big runs with big scores like Benedict Mathurin and co. Nick underscore XO says, dang, man, I can't even begin to explain how good it feels to watch the Pistons whoop another team's butt. And it's not to be a fluke for once. Hope this is just the beginning. We deserve this. And that's for sure. Like, I kind of get that. Like, oh, we didn't win by like a, bad foul. And then we win by 2 free throws, like to really win a game soundly and just be like, yeah, we were the better team in this game. Will the Pacers maybe get us next time? Maybe, but we outplayed them. And I really am impressed the way, and even Cade, the way he handled himself in that game. He didn't have a quarter where he had 15 points in a quarter and that put him at, I believe he scored 24. No, he just got, each quarter amounted to eventually end with 24. And that just showed how he's starting to get that vet presence of being consistent and adding that offensive ability that just kind of wears you down until that fourth quarter. And it really showed specifically in that Indiana Pacers game. Ryan, what are some of your thoughts at seeing the Pistons beat teams like the Pacers, the Miami Heat, starting to try to compete with these top, Eastern Conference teams? What does that show about what JB's doing, or Malik Beasley or a Cade presence?
It shows a lot. You look back at last year, like the Pacers last year hovered around 130, 140 points per game on average.
Right.
And then to beat them the way we did, like that's pretty darn good. And then you look at like even like our team last year, more often than not, we were down 20 going into the third quarter. And then we'd bring it back to at least 10, but then it extend the opposing team would go on another run and we'd be down 15 in the fourth, and then we'd make a comeback, and then we'd just ultimately lose. And it's not like it brought the 15 down to 2 or anything like that. It's like we brought the 15 down to 8 and we still lost. But this year's team, we're not playing from behind. We're playing from ahead, which isn't normal. Like last year, our bread and butter was, oh, we're a third quarter team. That's what we are.
Totally.
But this year, we're playing consistently at a high level all 4 quarters. And that comes down to the coaching. That really is what it is, because Monty did not care, and it was obvious. Greg Kelser knew that Monty didn't care. Everyone around the team knew that Monty did not care. And then you look at this year, and like JB Bickerstaff hosting a Thanksgiving dinner for his team on the road, and a bunch of laundry list of things to this point. Like you can tell he cares about this team. And players don't like playing for a coach that doesn't care. They like playing for a coach that cares. And that goes beyond coaching. That goes for sitting in the classroom. You want a teacher that believes in you because then that gets the most out of you. Like anything, life lesson wise, worldwide, like if you have a belief system around you, good things will happen. And JB Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon and Tom Gores finally, um, all of them have put this belief mindset around this team. And because of that, we're going to another level that we were never at before. Because last year, it was kind of like we were playing AAU basketball and just going through the motions. And yeah, we had some vet presence here and there. And I love Alec Burks to this day. Hopefully, he's still having a good season so far with the Heat, but love him, love Bojan, love all those guys and what they brought for us. But those were those were the vets that you would expect to have on a losing team. Then no disrespect to Alec Burks in particular, but those are the kind of vets that you would expect with a losing team. But with a winning team, you're expecting like Malik Beasley out there. You're expecting Tim Hardaway Jr. You're expecting Tobias Harris. You're expecting all these guys that we have currently on our roster in the vet experience on a winning organization. And JB pinpointed certain guys that he wanted to bring in to Trajan Langdon and be like, hey, I want these guys on my team because I know what I can get out of them that are going to help develop these guys down for the long haul. And those three additions on top of you add in Wendell Moore, you add in Paul Reed. Paul Reed really hasn't done much, but I can tell you for certain he has done a lot in practice to the point where
Right.
Isaiah Stewart is finally getting a little bit better on the boards because he has to compete day in and day out. And then same with Jalen Duren. Like all these guys are having to compete because Paul Reed is out there working his tail off in practice. Or same thing with Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, Wendell Moore. Like all these guys are just working their tails off in the gym and getting each other better. And you can just tell there's a different vibe this year than there was last year.
Well, and just to show you like the veteran presence that the difference it's made this season compared to vets last year versus the Miami Heat, where we won by 2 points. Both Malik Beasley and Cade Cunningham scored 21 points. So that's the kind of vet we're talking about in Malik Beasley. He is able to match our best player as far as points, and he's coming off the bench. And he's averaging over 15 points per game right now off the bench. That is just absolutely terrific. Ryan, do you have the stats up? Could you fact check me if that's true?
So Malik Beasley is averaging 16 points a game. Cade's at 24.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, that's just great in a big game like that, Emirates Cup game against the Miami Heat. You know, everybody's going to bring it. And then you see Cade and Malik Beasley put up 21. That's the kind of vet we're talking about. And then also, before we wrap up today's episode, I got to give a shout out to Isaiah Stewart. I have been a notorious Isaiah Stewart, not hater, but like, I've always been nervous about him. Like, I'm not sure if he's going to make it. Maybe he'll be a great center. I just have like, I don't know what to know. And this year, he has impressed me with his play. He is a dominant defensive anchor in the paint. He blocks everybody, and he's just a great rebounder. He doesn't force the three-pointers like we saw last year because he just didn't have guidance last year. We see the coaches this year working closely with Isaiah Stewart, and it's paying off big time as far as statistics and the win column. Ryan, do you have Isaiah Stewart's stats on you?
Yeah, so right
he's
now,
been playing great.
Stu is averaging nearly 7 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, shooting 56% from the field. Like he's playing at a very high level. Granted, obviously we'd want a double-double out of him, but hey, I'm going to take 7 and 7 and a very efficient shooting Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind he's playing nearly identical minutes to Jalen Duren. So there's two things. You know, Stewart's earning these minutes to match up with Jalen Duren, and that also shows that the coaching staff thinks he has starting level minutes. So that means how much respect JB and his coaches have for Isaiah Stewart. And that just shows a lot about the time and attention these coaches have with this Detroit Pistons team. That will do it for today's episode. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys in next week's episode. Peace.